Since the Sandbox fans, we're back. You know when the playoffs come around, we give you guys the positional rankings. Can't start with the quarterbacks because that would just be cheating.
We're not spoiling that early. Come on,
So
guys.
we start on the back end with the safeties and work our way through the defense and progressively through February and March. You guys will hear this updated throughout. We give you guys the top 10s. Twan, I'm interested to see where this list really differentiates and you know, what you really value to like kind of tear this up. 10 guys out of 32 teams, 2 safety positions, and probably 5 or 6 on each team. This is a really specific list.
It's a tough list. There was some last year. Safety was kind of like decided who. I just feel like the 10 safeties that we picked last year is like the 10 safeties that
It was more
made
definitive.
sense. It was more definitive. This one, like, there's a ton of names. I have 107 honorable mentions.
Dude.
I mean, this is incredible.
Everyone's a top 10 safety to Twan.
It's crazy because we saw a lot of safeties, a lot of higher-end safeties, ones that we usually put in the list. Like, they were hurt for portions of this year. So one of the things that I did on my list is I tried very hard to make sure that if you missed a significant portion of the games, right, you're not on the list. You can get mentioned in the honorable mentions, but this top 10 list is the top 10 list for this year, not just the top 10 who's in the league of all time.
Yeah. So Twan got a 10 honorable mention in the 10 list.
I do. I just got to show the love. That's what I do. I show the love. Honorable mention, the first one I'm going to go with, he might have made your list, but he just missed mine. I'd say he's number 11, Julian Blackmon.
Okay. He just missed. Lou loves Blackmon, dude.
He's real good, dude.
Yeah.
He's real good. Really good season.
Up-and-coming.
Had a couple of turnovers. He got in the backfield for a couple tackles for losses and sacks and just, I mean, he was a tackle machine, too. He was close to the 100 number. I mean, the guy played an awesome season. So the first honorable mention I want to talk about is Julian Blackmon, really solidifying, being a key piece on that Indy defense.
They have a couple of guys that might not get that national really recognition or that big name, especially when Indy's like a small market. But I promise you, when we get to the linebackers, Shaquille Leonard ain't on the list no more.
No.
But welcome, Zaire Franklin. Dude is a baller. They have a lot of young pieces on that defense that are really going to establish into a good side of the ball to complement that offense they're building around Anthony Richardson.
Love that. Love that. Zaire Franklin will be on the list. Don't you worry. The other guy that just missed my list, and he's somebody that's been on the list in a number of years past, I just think with the age, with the success the team had, the team finished second, could have just as easily been 6. It's the Buffalo Bills. Jordan Poyer just missed my list, Steve.
Yeah.
Again, very similar situation as Blackmon. He had a couple of turnovers. I'm just looking at my list of 10, and I think that there are 10 guys that did better than him. 11 if I'm including Julian Blackmon.
Oh, I thought you were going to say DeMar Hamlin.
yeah.
No.
I don't know.
Realistically, their back end was really banged up throughout the year. I will say a huge move for them when they lost, Tre'Davious White and other corner pieces that they had. Rasul Douglas came in and played a really big role for them. Their stat sheet wouldn't really complement that just because there was so much of a change that needed to be adapted through the season. But I think we'll see his presence through the playoffs in this game with Pittsburgh specifically. I think he's a solid safety. I think he's more on the back end of his career. And the reason why I don't have a guy like Poyer in here knowing how good that he actually is because I've also seen his potential. And if he's not near what I think his best is, I feel like that's another reason why to keep him kind of like off the list. Like I'm trying to get 10 guys that I know are still playing some of their best ball right now. And that's why it's such a tough conversation.
Prime football. That's
Absolutely.
100%. I couldn't agree more.
And I feel like there's a guy that really introduced himself into this conversation. I actually wrote him down here at 9. And after just going through like a couple of other factors, I actually took him out. And he's just on a just miss. But the Baltimore Ravens defense, it's not Kyle Hamilton.
I was going to say, you can't take him out. You can't even consider him a 9.
The Baltimore Ravens defense is a really talented unit, so I feel like it would have been so easy to spread the love to the Ravens D. But a guy that isn't a big name is still getting established. Was a underrated type of player. Geno Stone, you heard me talk about him a little bit.
Well.
Yeah, he played really well, and I feel like the Ravens can't have as cohesive as a team if you don't get secondary play from a unit like that. And not to bring it up, but we always fuck around with Marlon Humphrey.
We do fuck around with Marlon Humphrey.
But I feel like these safeties for the Baltimore Ravens were the difference of keeping that team leveled throughout. And when their offense had struggles and it took a couple of extra drives to score points, because there were points for the Baltimore Ravens earlier in the season where that was the case, the defense saved them a lot. So I think you need to credit this dude. Much respect and excited to see where his future is. Everybody thought with no Wink Martindale that this defense was kind of going to collapse. It was put together better than it has been in the past 5-6 years.
This is the best I've seen since Lamar's been in Baltimore as far as the defense goes. This is the best since we look at like Ray Lewis and Ed Reed, in my opinion. This defense has been unbelievable. It's been unbelievable.
It has. And one I think that we'll both talk about here, so I'm just going to toss it out here, and you can feel free to chime in as well. My guy came over from the Giants to the New England Patriots, and, usually we don't want that continued success, but this is a good-ass dude. So much love, much respect. Jabril Peppers had a great season where he was counted out in Cleveland when they legit were looking for defensive superstars. Obviously, they had Myles Garrett, but was written off. Went to a couple of different spots, came over to the Giants, and found his role in a unit that would have that 3 safety type of mold and scheme. And the Pats do that. The Ravens do that. There's very few defenses that this type of safety play would excel and thrive in. Jabril Peppers found a way to continue that in New England. We know how much, the safety position is changing, and you have the hybrid linebackers and things like that now. Jabril can be categorized as both, but to be able to impact a defense, the run, the pass, and keep a unit together, you got to show a lot of love and a lot of respect for that. So Jabril Peppers just missed the list, but I got to say he had a great season for the New England Patriots. Not too many players I could say that about.
There's not too many players you can say that about. We may say it one more time today, though. Jabril Peppers, one of the other things, just the versatility that he brings to the table is incredible. He's all over the field at all points. I mean, and he's really become a leader on that defense, too, and becoming a leader in a Bill Belichick-led defense. We miss you, Bill, but it's not the easiest thing to do. I'm okay with it.
Yeah. Did you see Matt's comment? Hold the mayo.
Yeah, hold the mayo. Yeah.
Matt's not too happy about mayo right now.
I think the reason Bill's a little bit more okay, I think the press conference went a little bit better than it was less awkward than I thought it was going to be, and I think it's because Bill's okay with it being Mayo to take over and they're not bringing somebody from the outside in to kick him out. It's just a weird situation where it's like we knew this was coming, expected it, candidly wanted it, in my opinion, but once it happened, it's like you still just kind of miss the guy. Like there's still that void. I want to see him do well in future and have those future successes. I want to see him pass Shula. I may even want to see him win a Super Bowl with another organization. And I just, not at the cost of us, but it wasn't going to happen here. And I just don't think we had the talent to support what he wanted to do. We were going to go through some really rough patches. When you need 15 games to pass Shula, we were going to have 3 seasons to do that. Like that's if we stayed with where we were. Now we need a new mind. We need to do things differently. I wish him the best. I hope for all the success for him, but I do think that this was ultimately the right decision, and I like the Mayo play.
Okay. I think that there's a lot of questions on the offensive side of the ball, but we're talking about safeties
we're
today.
On defense.
Yeah,
don't jump to the gun.
So, Twan, what I want you to do so we can get into the list, I just want you to, go through the rest of your honorable mentions so I can pick it up here at 10.
Yeah, there's a number of guys here. There's Jalen Petrie, great season. Minka Fitzpatrick is on this list if he doesn't miss all the games that he missed.
Of course, Hufanga.
Jordan Whitehead, Hufanga, right? Justin Reed also played pretty good. This guy will go on the field and he'll kick a field goal sometimes too. So you got to throw his name in there. Another guy, I know that you love this shit on Detroit just because it gets me all fired up.
Yeah.
But Kirby Joseph had an unbelievable season.
Wow, I thought you were going to say Brian Branch. I had him up here for consideration. Just think, the injuries in the middle were the difference. I think if he played, I see. I think if the injuries didn't happen in the middle, it would have been a little bit more appropriate for me to fit. I think as a rookie safety, especially on a defense that was starving for defenders, he's absolutely a star in the making. Just think that if there was a little bit of a better unit, it would have been a lot easier for me to say that he complemented that defense better. You know?
I understand. Big fan of the rookies. You will see from me, there will be a rookie on every single positional rankings list. I'm going to make that a point this year. There will be one rookie on every single list that we do.
No rookie in here. No rookie in here. But at 10, this guy was almost out of my rankings. Just because, like I talk about the impact word a lot, especially when it comes to football. Feel like this dude has had a larger impact in the past, and you heard me talk about this prior to us starting the episode. Derwin James here at 10. I know this is a guy that's usually sitting in that top 5 conversation, even if you're including some of those names that were banged up this year, right? But I just feel like that defensive unit, even though he has some solid stats here to really say that he had a great season, usually you hear, oh, Derwin James is swanton bombing Travis Kelce at the 5-yard line, or making a pick and sealing a game for the Chargers. There weren't too many games sealed for that organization, whether it was on the offensive side, defensive side, whatever the case may be. But to say he didn't have a top 10 safety season with everything that was at hand, I think would still be a little bit blasphemy. Mm-hmm. So Derwin James, he had 125 total tackles. I think that's a really solid number, especially when you consider, the amount of times that defense was realistically on the field. Mm-hmm. 2 sacks and 2 fumble recoveries. I do like that number. I think that there's more safeties that we're going to talk about higher on this list that might have a little bit more of an impact around the line of scrimmage, rushing the quarterback, recovering fumbles and turning the ball over. So this is why he's more on the back end. But an interception, 7 pass deflections, and 4 tackles for loss, I still feel like makes for a really solid all-around season coming from the safety position. Derwin James here at 10.
It's a great pick. Steve, here at 10 for me, I hope he makes your list. He might be higher up on the list. Had a great season. Javon Holland here for Miami. 77 total tackles, 52 himself.
Just missed.
Just missed. I mean, but what a season he had. One of the highlights of the season is him getting a 99-yard interception return for a touchdown against the Jets, and I believe that was the Black Friday game.
Yes.
So really, really entertaining. 3 forced fumbles, a fumble recovery, and then he also had an interception, 4 pass deflections. But again, like we mentioned, that touchdown really jumps out. 99 yards. He's on this list. He might not be on this list if he doesn't have that big splash play, but that's something that you're going to see everywhere. I was very, very impressed with Javon Holland this season. Really one of the anchors on the back end, especially when Jalen Ramsey went out for a while. They've dealt with a little bit of injuries in that secondary. He's been there, staying there, solid.
Yeah, I mean, definitely an underappreciated name. And you could definitely flirt with, like, the top 10. I just think, like, the stats... Like, when you hear some of these names coming up, like, the stats are going to be very similar, but I do just feel like when Ramsey was healthy, when X was healthy, with the exception of that Black Friday game, I just felt like they did make more of, like, an impact and affect the game a little bit more. He's still a great player, a great safety, and I know you've been shining light on Javon Holland for a long time now. And he's a crucial part to that defense. He better make some plays in Kansas City for that team to move on. I know.
He's a captain on that defense, and he's young. He's like 25 years old. This dude has got a big career to come. I think he's entering his prime right now.
Love to hear that. So at 9 here for me, at first when I was just drafting this up, this guy wasn't on it. And honestly, like, I feel, and the reason why was very similar to a Javon Holland, 2 great corners as part of this defense, and I feel like it can get very skewed. But I thought this guy was going to drop off significantly, especially after the year that he had last year. Back-to-back seasons inside the positional rankings at the safety position. This is where I have Julian Love. I feel like there were crucial plays that he's made. Not a guy I'm expecting on your list, honestly, so I'll be shocked.
That's low.
Yeah?
That's low.
Woo! That's low. I love that. So Julian Love, I mean, and you can feel free to reflect, when it's your position for him, of course. But 123 total tackles, 2 forced fumbles, and a fumble recovery, 4 interceptions. And then when you talk about those stats, that's around the line of scrimmage, right? Making plays in the run game, affecting the quarterback. And then, you come over here, 4 interceptions, 10 pass deflections, and 2 tackles for loss. So that's an overall great season coming out of Julian Love. Thought the drop-off was going to be there, and it wasn't. A lot of things are changing in Seattle, but I think if there's one thing that they want to stay, it's that defensive identity. And I think that Dan Quinn is on his way back to Seattle, building back Legion of Boom 2.0. You got Spoon, you got Wowen, you got Love, you got Adams, you got Ryan Neal over there, Bobby Wags and Jordan Brooks.
Yeah,
not even going to the defensive front. They have pass rushers. They traded for Leonard Williams, Draymond Jones. They got 2 young pass rushers they got in the second round. Like, you're talking about a great defensive unit. I think Pete Carroll wanted to stay the same course, go with Geno, go with Locke. I think they wanted to change things up on the offensive side of the ball. That's a lot of the reason why you're seeing the differences. I also think they were ready for their next chapter in Seattle. Julian Love's a big part of all of that. Great season out of that dude.
Absolutely. Love the pick. Steve, for my number 9, we are coming over to the rookie and didn't put him in top 5, so it's not like it's crazy disrespectful. But I do have Brian Branch on this list. Rookie out of Detroit, 74 tackles total, 50 by himself. He has a sack, a forced fumble. Week 1, right? He has 3 interceptions. For week 1, he gets a pick against Kansas City. He makes his presence known immediately. 13 different pass deflections, has a house call. I mean, this dude had an incredible season, and he's just a rookie.
Yeah.
He's going to be a cornerstone on that defense for years to come.
That defense is going to be built around him.
It is going to be built around him. It's going to be built around Hutch, another guy that you might see in our rankings coming up soon. But it's just, I mean, this guy, it's shocking to see a rookie come in game 1.
Yeah.
Like somebody who gets drafted in the second round, game 1, makes his presence known immediately. Nothing but the up and up for Brian Branch. And this is going to be one of those dudes that you're going to start to be scared to play against because he's going to come up and he's going to hit stick you immediately once he starts to build out a little bit more.
Yeah. I think if that defense was a better overall unit, he would have got a lot more love and recognition. It's really hard when you have a guy like Witherspoon playing in a very similar position that has the impact that he does, was healthy for a full season. And then obviously, a Jalen Carter, who, I mean, the dude's a freak. Like, you know what I mean?
Freak
so,
in
like,
nature, dude. One of the best defenders that we're probably going to end up seeing in the next couple of years.
Yeah, and when it just comes down to, like, these young guys and their impact, I just feel like people value that very differently. And I feel like safety is a position. I don't want to say it gets disrespected. You could say that, especially with the way that they get compensated contractually and free agency and all of that. But the guys up front tend to get paid a little bit more. And I think people would argue that Jalen Carter had a little bit more of an impression with all of that. Mm-hmm. At 8, this guy has definitely had better seasons in the past. I feel like, when I was talking about, are they past their prime? Have they given their best before? This guy has a huge leadership position on this team, and I feel like this unit didn't get respected probably until halfway through the season, honestly. Justin Simmons here wasn't too crazy about it because the stats were much better in prior seasons. Mm-hmm. And, I feel like I kind of reflected on that with some of your picks here. But I also feel like it would have been so easy for that Denver Broncos team to collapse this year, right? With the way everything worked out. They had some leaders on the offensive side of the ball. They had some leaders on the defensive side of the ball. I would say he's the biggest leader in that entire locker room, even over a Sean Payton, especially with the way that he was demoralizing Russell Wilson on the sidelines.
Yeah.
That's some bullshit. That's a grown-ass man, regardless if he's doing what you don't want. Like,
he's ruining the ride.
I'm fucking, yeah. Like, Russell Wilson's probably, sniffing his 30s, a little bit older than that. I'm 27 years old. I would never have a dude talk to me like that. Forget about if it's on national TV. It's my coach if I'm getting paid like that. He got benched, and he's losing out on $37 million because of that decision. Sean Payton's probably like, this dude don't have a backbone. He's legit getting over here, pushed over from me. But we're talking about Justin Simmons, not Russell Wilson. Justin Simmons, but I feel like I needed to say that where I respect Justin Simmons as a leader for that team, and that's why he's kind of more in here. 70 total tackles, a sack, a forced fumble, and that fumble recovery. 3 interceptions, 8 pass deflections. More of that all-around type of player. We've seen better coverage. We've seen better, interception stats from him, but I still feel like everything that was here for Justin Simmons wasn't written down on paper. Mm-hmm. My opinion.
I like it. Justin Simmons did miss my list, though, and I do think I go back to I've just seen better seasons out of him.
Absolutely. I
absolutely agree he's an anchor on that team. I don't think he's the best player on that team, though, defensively. I think there's one other guy in the secondary that you're going to hear when we do another set of rankings that is the cornerstone of that defense.
I agree.
Cornerstone might not be the right word, but
the corner might be.
Impactful player. Yeah, right. Little pun there. I love that energy, though. I love you bringing that energy about Russ Wilson. It's getting me all fired up. Because coming in at number 8, Steve, Xavier McKinney here at 8.
Woo!
I don't know if you think this is low. I don't know if you think he deserves the list. He's a giant, right? You probably got him in this list.
I have him in this list. I definitely expected you to have him at a lower spot than me. I expected our flop to be here. So, I mean, for you to have him on this list, that's respectable enough for me. So
that's and again, it's not like he had a great season. I just kind of expected a little bit more, especially coming off of last year, how he played, and really all the expectations that I personally had for the Giants coming off of that offseason. It was just a little bit of an underwhelming year, but finished the season with 116 total tackles, 78 of them by himself, half a sack, forced fumble, 2 recoveries, and if I'm correct, 3 interceptions, 11 pass deflections. those are big pass deflection numbers for safeties.
Yeah.
So really, really good season as like Xavier McKinney. I expect to see more to come from him because he's still a young guy. What is he, 26, 27 years old?
Yeah.
He's going to have more to come.
His rookie, this was a contract year for him. I'm assuming that the Giants are going to lock him up. I mean, it's really hard to imagine them not to, but at the same time, the Giants have a lot of holes. So being able to distribute that money and, build a roster, that's going to be how Dable decides to do it. But we cannot, absolutely just diminish the defensive side of the ball because our offense is so poor. Like that's not the way that we're going to win games. But it also depends on who we bring in for, a DC, because the way Wink ran things, he liked having 3-4 safeties on the field. It's going to be different. I think X has showed us that he can play a bunch of different ways. When I do have him on here on the list, I have a couple of other things that, I really wanted to mention with him. But at 7, this is where I have the Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu, a familiar name for this list, but it's not the crazy seasons that we've seen on Kansas City or Arizona, but I still feel like for that Saints defense, they're not as good without him. And I feel like, just like it is with Justin Simmons, there's a leadership part to this that numbers will never be able to put a value on. Tyrann Mathieu here only had 16 receiving yards against him in coverage the entire season.
That's a ridiculous stat.
That's insane. So shout out to PFF for being able to provide that. But
I didn't even have Tyrann in my list because I had no idea about that stat.
Exactly. There's things that you need to dig for, Twan. That's why we do homework.
There's some trick. I just still looking though. It's just again where I'm coming back to this is like I've seen Tyrann have better seasons. Now there is the leadership aspect that. It's unmatched, right? He is the guy in that locker room. I look at this list. I just think there are some guys on my list that I think did a little bit better than him.
I know, but I do think like when you hear some more of these stats, I mean, a 75-yard pick six that was part of absolutely demolishing the Atlanta Falcons and then demolished Dennis Allen.
Yep.
But, with that 9 pass deflections, I feel like this is a higher number for what Tyrann Mathieu would have in prior seasons. So I just feel like this is more of a transition of an all-around sideline-to-sideline safety to an older in career, just dropping back in coverage a little bit more. And I feel like it's a similar transition that we've seen with McCourty. He could do it, right? He can be at the line of scrimmage, can cover your tight end, can tackle a running back sideline to sideline, but his role is just different as he continues to age. But with that, still had 75 total tackles, 4 interceptions, and, we talk about everything he impacted in the coverage game. So I thought the Saints defensive unit was going to be a little bit better this year. I was a little bit disappointed, but I'm not going to have that solely impact Tyrann Mathieu's play. I think if there was a healthy season out of Marshawn Lattimore, better seasons from the pass rushers up front from the Saints, that this was going to be a different season.
Very fair, and they still shut out my boys. So
yeah.
It has been 34-0. It's depressing to watch. That's the moment I knew that I was like, I'm done. Red zone it is.
Should always be red zone.
Coming in at number 7, Steve, Chicago Bears safety Jaquan Brisker.
Oh my God, dude! Wow, that was bad. I don't know what was worse. What I wanted to say on that voice crack, but that might be the clip for the beginning. But dude, he had such a good season. Like him, like Jalen Johnson, who I feel like that could still be a name that we mention. Yep. It's just so tough because they were just so bad for so long, but their numbers are still pretty solid.
They're ridiculous, but when you look at the Chicago Bears defense on the back half of the season, they really picked it up, and it looks like they've made the decision they're going to keep rocking with Eberflus.
Yeah.
So unless something drastic changes, I mean, that was my hot take for Bill, was he was going to go to the Bears, but if they're going to keep Eberflus, then boom, shot myself right in the foot on that one. But
in the foot of the dick.
Both. But Jaquan Brisker here, 105 total tackles, 2 forced fumbles. He got a sack as well. I mean, this dude had an unbelievable season, 9 pass deflections, an interception. The back half of this season, the Chicago Bears defense really started to show promise.
Yeah.
For future, right?
Yeah.
For the future of the Chicago Bears. It gave some encouragement. It gives someone like Caleb Williams a reason to say, you know what? Chicago isn't as much of a dumpster fire as I thought.
Stop it. Fields is going to stay there. Fields
deserves it, but tell me that it's not
sketchy.
It's sketchy, but also, like, you got to think of this from Chicago's standpoint, too. You're going to have to pay Fields. You could just do the same thing. You're going to rock with Eberflus. You have a similar, I don't want to say similar style quarterback, but you have Caleb Williams, generational quarterback, coming in here. You're going to get him on a rookie contract versus having to pay Fields all that money.
I get it.
So, like, what do you want to do? Do you want to just rock with Fields and let some building come around him, or do you want to have Caleb Williams on a rookie contract and be able to spend a lot of money?
I do just think that there's a difference when it comes to like consistency at that position. I feel like even though what you're saying as far as building a team and salary cap wise 100% makes sense, and that's a lot of the things I consider when we're in the offseason. We're talking about salary cap, draft, free agency, all that. I think Fields is a much better talent than he's been given respect for. I honestly think Fields is inside the top 15 as far as top quarterbacks in the NFL. Sure. That's not an easy position to just go and draft or find. And regardless of how talented people say Caleb Williams is, I still feel like it's really hard, even in the first top 10 picks, to find a guy that's going to have this, I don't want to say success because he hasn't won shit, but to play at the level that Justin Fields has played. You gave him a DJ Moore, and you saw what happened. They still have the running ability. Dude, if you add like an actual back that's like a bell cow rather than splitting between like guys that you're considering 2Bs, honestly, I feel like that's a little bit of the difference. But what I also want to mention on the defensive side of the ball, since we're here for the positional rankings, that defense changed when Montez Sweat was acquired as part of it.
Significantly.
And it was so close. I did my homework back on the bold predictions. I predicted Chase Young to the Bears. Montez Sweat, dude, it was real freaking close. But
same fucking thing.
I know.
No, Eagles. Montez Sweat's Eagles.
Montez Sweat went to the Bears.
He went to the Bears. He came from Eagles.
No. He came from Washington.
He did come from.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Who's the Eagles? Sweat?
They're both
Josh
pretty,
Sweat.
Yeah,
Josh
pretty.
Sweat.
They're both pretty sweaty.
Sweaty guys.
Yeah. But I feel like, that was really close, but that's all they needed. And I saw that just through a different perspective. Who would have thought that fucking San Francisco was going to go and get the best available pass rusher after having the best potential pass rusher, in Nick Bosa. So
dude, it's crazy.
Yeah. So obviously, and they're a contender. They were a favorite to really go the distance, but I think it's interesting to see where Chicago goes. I think them and the Packers going into the offseason are on par. Even if the Packers are in the playoffs, I think that they both found their quarterbacks, in my opinion. I think they have more of an identity than they've had in the past couple of years as well. Coming over to 6, Kyle Duggar. This is where I have Duggar. I feel like, look, I see what you have on your list, so it's not too far.
I love that take.
Okay.
I love that take, and looking at mine, you can really flip the two guys I got back to back here, but take off on Duggar. I want you to go off on Duggar.
I think that he could have had a better season if Jabril didn't have such a great season. I also think that the safety play in New England was improved because of the lack of corner play there. I think it was a really tough season on the defensive side of the ball for a team that's known to be significantly great on defense. I feel like Duggar and Pepe's really kept that unit together, inspired a lot of the guys like Gonzalez, and obviously, Judon got banged up, but that's the identity of the Patriots, especially with Mayo going forward. Like, the fact that he's given that position, a lot of things are going to stay the same, especially on that side of the ball. The expectation is for them to still be a top 10 defense, keep opponents on the top low, the back end low scoring, and obviously, be able to create turnovers on that side of the ball. Duggar does that really well. 109 total tackles, 2 interceptions, 7 pass deflections is a solid number. 6 tackles for loss is really good, but I do feel like I would have loved to see him impact the sack game a little bit more. I know that's not his game specifically, but just, maybe a couple more coverage things that I would have liked to see. 109 tackles, I know he's had, much more, but like I said, that was split with Jabril, and they both affected the run game significantly. I feel like that's more of things that don't show on paper.
Love it. And I'm going to get to talking just a little bit more about him because you did a great job. I'm going to get to talking a little bit more about him in just a minute, but at 6, this is somebody that next year, if I'm talking about projections for 2024 where I think this guy will be, I think he's going to be top 3. I don't think that's a hot take. Kyle Hamilton here.
Whoa!
You think it's low? You already got him there. You might already got him there, Steve.
I'm sorry if I scared you off. Shout out to Austin joining us today.
Studio, yeah. Kyle Hamilton
It's
here.
too early to be screaming that loud.
But it's 6, and the Baltimore Ravens and 6. Like, it's just meant to be almost. Now, come on. I'm sorry, dude. You're going to – did he turn it off yet?
Yeah. No, he's staying around for where I got
He knows, yeah.
He knows I'm going to take care of my boy.
But Kyle Hamilton, man. incredibly great, young, bright spot on the Ravens defense. Somebody that will be top 3 for years to come. Here I got him at 6, 81 total tackles, 63 by himself. Guy gets 3 sacks, a forced fumble, 4 interceptions, 13 pass deflections. This dude had an unbelievable season, and it's only going to get better, and really was a focal point on this defense that played so well.
Hey,
you got your Roquan Smith.
Let's add in 7 tackles behind the line of scrimmage and 3 sacks.
That's huge. That is absolutely huge. What a season from Kyle Hamilton here. I mean, you're going to look. He's going to be the guy. It's him and Roquan Smith. You build that defense around it, and Roquan Smith's a little bit older than Kyle Hamilton, so you're expecting Kyle Hamilton to be the focal point of that defense for the next 7, 8 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more, and I can't wait for you to hear where I have him, for Anthony to hear where I have him, and to just reflect on him a little bit more. I thought you were going to think that this is a little fishy, but I also think that where you had this switch, I thought that this was accurately how it was going to go. At 5, this is where I have Xavier McKinney. Mm-hmm. I do think that Kyle Duggar's had a better season. I think when you hear some of the other things that I have to add with Xavier McKinney, that's the reason why I kind of put him up here. So you mentioned the 116 total tackles. Xavier McKinney in coverage didn't allow a single touchdown this year. I think he's the anchor of that defense. I think that he has the ability to sniff at the line of scrimmage, affect the run game, can get after the quarterback. I think he's great in coverage. I think he's at his best when he's just free in the back and they're just like, yo, be the commander of the back end. Whatever you see, make that first instinct and react real quickly. So I think Xavier McKinney is really good. You already touched on the 11 pass deflections, like in coverage. That's a huge number. When that's not a corner, you're talking about a guy that's jumping a route that a corner is already defending, with the exception of zone coverage, of course. But Xavier McKinney, Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau, as we saw, this year kind of established more for him. We're starting to build the pieces, and I know this year didn't go the way you thought for the Giants, the way I thought it was going to go for the Giants. A lot of that was due to the catastrophe that we have to call an offense. Whether that was to injuries or whatever the case may be, the defense wasn't why we lost games this year. Maybe to the Cowboys and the Eagles that one time, but with the actually, I don't even want to say the Eagles that one time because we only lost them by 5 points. So you're talking about a defense that kept Tommy DeVito and Tyrod Taylor in games. Like, that's insane. Even people would say that Daniel Jones plays pretty poor. I think with Daniel Jones, we probably win 2-3 more games, and the season is a lot less dramatic than it was. Xavier McKinney can be higher on this list, can be lower on this list. I think it'll be really interesting to see how he grows and what happens in a contract year for him. I think he had a top 5 season, in my opinion.
He had a great year. And at number 5 for me, this is where I have Kyle Duggar, just one spot off of where you had him. The only other thing that I want to add, you did a great job going through it. The only other thing I want to add is he is the anchor of the defense. He is that guy. It's like it's Barmore, it's Preppers, but it's him.
Yeah.
Like, it's him. He's a guy gets drafted in the 2nd round, a D2 safety from God knows what school it was.
Yeah.
And he just became one of the more prolific players on the New England Patriots defense. He plays the kind of football that Bill Belichick wanted to play, that Gerard Mayo's going to want to play. He's somebody that, if he doesn't get paid by New England, he's going to get the bag somewhere else because this dude is a real deal top safety for the rest of his career.
Absolutely. So this one is the pick I kind of had a little bit more of a story on. So I want to go in detail with that story before, I just come to things as far as stats in football.
Mm-hmm.
You heard of the name Cam Bynum at all?
I have heard of the name of Cam Bynum.
Yeah? Cam Bynum just missed your list.
Mentions.
So I'm going to tell this story before I go in depth about Cam Bynum here. So I want to give a shout out really quick. We shout out to Jimmy Darts. Jimmy Darts' Instagram page. I have no idea who this dude is, but I came across this actually right before I was coming up with the safety list, probably a couple of days ago, and I was like, I wonder if this guy had as impactful of a season that I can actually reflect on this story a little bit. So Jimmy Darts is inside, I would say, a Walmart, a Target, something like that. And, you see those videos of people just trying to do good deeds all the time. And this was already in one of, like, the ideas of that type of a video. So this little boy, AJ, he's in the toy aisle with his mom. And this dude walks into the aisle. And he's like, hey, do you want a $1,000 Vikings jersey? And this dude, AJ, starts going nuts. He's like, I know you, you're on YouTube. The mom's on the phone. She hangs up the phone real quick and she's like, what the fuck is going on? So this dude, AJ, low kid, he's probably 8, 9 years old. He had a stroke. He had to learn how to walk. In this interaction, this dude, Jimmy Darts, handed him a Cam Bynum jersey And he said it was $1,000 jersey because he also handed the family $1,000. And he had no idea that AJ had a brain choke. He had to learn to walk and what that family was going through. AJ's never been to a Vikings game. On top of that jersey, that $1,000, Cam Bynum got him sideline passes to the game, got to meet him on the field. They did some dances, did some TikToks. He was in his game jersey. He was there for the pregame, some real feel-good type shit. Great dude. This is only this dude's second year in the league.
God damn.
So to hear this story, to hear this impact, knowing that a Vikings defense was not expected to be much this year. Obviously, Brian Flores is over there. But in the matter of a football season, to do this and also go to social media, and I don't know if you saw, but his wife needed a visa to come over and to be here. He established all of that with this story in one season, and we're not even talking about football stats yet. Cam Bynum had a PFF top 5 safety grade overall. Coverage, running game, impact. Top of that, 137 total tackles, 3 forced fumbles, 2 interceptions, and 9 pass deflections. The Vikings found a steal in the second round in Cam Bynum, and I'm so happy after all the years of hearing Harrison Smith over there that not only do we have another great dude in the NFL, but we have a great safety. Cam Bynum, Jimmy Dart, shout out to you guys. Lil AJ, go chase your dreams, youngin'. Go get whatever's yours.
Can I amend my list? Yeah. So number 1, I have Cam Bynum. That's an awesome story.
I felt like I just had to share that.
I didn't know anything about that. That's just like good, heartfelt. Like that's the kind of stuff you want to see out of some of these players in the NFL. So
makes these lists different.
It does that. I mean,
it does.
I'm a little speechless. Like, that's just like,
I'm sorry, Tom.
I didn't recognize that in real. I can't believe I haven't seen that. So it's just. I'm
gonna send you the video after.
Real
this.
dude, please do.
Yeah,
I mean, cool dude. Shout out Cam Bynum, man. Might buy his jersey now.
I was gonna say he might have to get in the list now.
He is. So Derwin James at 4 is now getting rescinded to Cam Bynum at 4. But I do have Derwin James in this list here. I think I agree it's not his best season that he's had, but I will say he is the only thing going on that defense.
Yeah.
The only thing going with all the injuries that they've had, except for Khalil Mack, who had actually an unbelievable season. But Derwin James here, 125 tackles. I mean, this guy really is the final piece of that defense. Like, if the linebackers aren't getting the tackles, if they're not getting sacks in the backfield, it comes down to Derwin James. Derwin James played well this year on a very bad defense. He was really one of the few bright spots. I had to put him in this list just because I know what he's capable of and I know what he's going to do in years coming. I do think he still had a good season being able to get in the backfield. 2 sacks at the safety position is always good. So Absolutely. I do have Derwin James in this list here at 4. Okay. But it might be Cam Bynum.
No, I love that. And honestly, like you talk about a Chargers team that wins 11, 12 games, that impacts a little bit more different. And I feel like, it would be able to get him a little bit more on this list, especially like this. It's very controversial and debatable to say that Tyrann Mathieu or Justin Simmons had a better season than Derwin James, but it just, like I said, how you really value all those numbers and put it together. At 3, this could be low, this could be high. Really interested to digress on this dude because the growth has continued to kind of happen right in front of us. This is where I have Antoine Winfield Jr. So you're talking about a 93.4 overall Pro Football Focus grade. That pass rush combination of being excellent, like you're talking about achieving a 93 on football plays. Like, that's absolutely insane impact. 122 total tackles, 6 sacks, 6 forced fumbles from the safety position, and with that, recovered 4 of them. Like, that's insane to be able to make 6 punches and then just like, okay, I'm going to take it too. After that, 3 interceptions, 12 pass deflections from a safety, 6 tackles behind the line of scrimmage. All-around impact. You got Devin White. I know you're not very fond of, but we talked about him a little bit throughout the prior episodes. You have a Vita Vea. You have Winfield there. That team is not in the playoffs without defensive players like that. Obviously, you talk a lot about a Baker Mayfield and a Rashad White who shined and thrived throughout the season. This dude would never get his flowers because he plays the defensive side of the ball in an offensive league in the NFL. Antoine Winfield could have had the best season as a safety entirely.
He may have. We'll find out.
Ooh.
Steve, at 3, this is where I have Julian Love. Really, really encouraging to see what he did for that Seattle secondary was absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, he's him paired with Quandre Diggs, and you get the 2 corners on the back end. It's like that secondary is unbelievable. Can't see what they do in years to come. Julian Love here at 3. I don't want to go too deep into it. I know you talked about him a lot already.
Yeah, and honestly, like this is the second or third straight season where we've had Seattle defensive backs, and it's not even defensive, but safeties specifically inside of our positional rankings if you date backwards since the sandbox that long. So just goes to show you the powerhouse and the development that Seattle really does on that side of the ball specifically. Coming at 2, this dude on a new team this year, his team sent him away, was like, oh man, we don't need him. We got to pay the offensive side of the ball. We got to take care of this wide receiver. We got to draft these dudes. Man, they fucked up.
They fucked up.
They
missed
fucked
this
up
dude
bad.
big time. I know where you're going,
did.
Steve.
They did.
Because he's my number 2 also. Do you want to say it at the same
3,
time?
2, 1. Jesse Bates. Absolutely.
100%.
Jesse Bates, 132 total tackles, 3 forced fumbles, 6 interceptions, 1 touchdown, 11 pass deflections, 8 tackles behind the line of scrimmage. Ranks top 3 according to PFF in run defense and coverage coming from that position. But most importantly, the Atlanta Falcons defense is relevant. The Atlanta Falcons defense is good. The Atlanta Falcons defense kept them in games. They didn't allow 30, 40 points a game this season. They didn't get blown out and embarrassed. Their side of the ball that needs work is offense with 3 first-round picks at specialist positions. Absolutely crazy, insane that Jesse Bates has came over, made other people better in that system. You're talking about a top cornerback in A.J. Terrell. Add Jesse Bates to that. You get a top pass rusher there, and Bill Belichick goes to the Atlanta fucking Falcons. They're winning that division with fucking ease. They're going to do that with Taylor Heineke. They're going to do that with Brian Hoyer. They're going to do that with Twan DeSimone. It doesn't matter.
You're damn right. You think Bill Belichick going to the Falcons?
I saw this morning that there's mutual interest, and I think that it would be more likely that that's a scenario. Bill gets to stay indoors after being in the snow all year. I bet you Arthur Blank is a respected owner around the league. I think that there's a lot to like as far as a roster goes. Yeah, there's a quarterback problem, but I also think Bill wants control on that quarterback problem, and I think that's why it might be more likely. I know people are screaming, Chargers. I think Jim Harbaugh has to be the favorite for the Chargers position if he does leave. I'm just trying to look at scenarios. Washington ruled out Belichick. I don't see Belichick going to a Titans team knowing how much work is going to have to be done there. I think he's going to insert himself into a division. I don't want to say that needs a lot of work, but after a season, maybe a half a season, you can see Belichick's difference in that team.
The other name people are throwing out, and I'm going to give a reason why I don't think it's going to happen, is Dallas Cowboys if Mike McCarthy blows this game this week or in the divisional round, or if they lose to the Niners again. It's like they're on thin ice.
Yeah.
You need a winner. The reason why I don't think so is because Jerry Jones has way too much of a hold on that team and the whole situation that Bill will have none of.
Yeah.
Jerry's going to want to do something. Bill's going to say, F you, and Jerry's going to go, well, you're fired.
Yeah.
And then they're a disaster of an organization, and that's that. But
absolutely.
Cowboys is a name that's being circulated. I do like the idea. I can see a situation in which people would think that and why, but Jerry would, just the control that Jerry has, he would need to relinquish all power to Bill, and I don't think he's going to do that, and I don't think Bill's going to sit in there and take it. I mean, you crushed it, man. That's why I see you nailed it. I mean, the Falcons defense is relevant again for the first time, and since I've been on the podcast for sure, but since you've been doing the podcast, the first time it's been relevant again.
Absolutely.
We're talking 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Like,
if not longer than that. I mean, I know Matt Ryan took them to a Super Bowl and stuff, but they really didn't have a great defense then.
They didn't. It was the offense was plentiful.
Yeah.
Taylor Gabriel. Why is that the first name I brought up?
I
Matt
don't
Ryan,
know.
Julio Jones.
I thought when we're talking about defense, you would have mentioned Deion Jones, who's an absolute bum now. But
Vic Beasley had a great year that year, though.
Yeah,
it's that's the one. So, okay, so we got one on.
Yeah.
But Jesse Bates, unbelievable year. The Falcons defense is relevant again, and he's one of the biggest reasons why.
Absolutely. So at 1, I told you a little bit too low earlier. Stand up, Ravens fans.
Wow.
Stand up, Uncle Tony. Kyle Hamilton. I feel like even with the stats or without the stats, impacted his defense the most. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh my God, he's the next Ed Reed, because Ed Reed is one of one. But Kyle Hamilton is the next star safety in the NFL. He was drafted as such. He was drafted at 14. You don't see safeties picked like that. You see, cornerbacks and things like that. But this dude, you talked about the stats. 81 total tackles, 3 sacks, 13 pass deflections, I feel like is huge. I mentioned the 7 tackles behind the line of scrimmage, but you mentioned a Patrick Queen. They have a legitimate pass rusher. The only team to get some productivity out of Jadeveon Clowney. Like, this dude hasn't made a clip since high school or college, whatever it was, South Carolina.
One tackle.
But Kyle Hamilton really is, I think, the safety with the best future going forward at the position as a whole. I think regardless of what you ask him to do. If you wanted him one-on-one with a slot guy, if you want him one-on-one with an outside guy, one-on-one with a tight end, I think he would thrive and be the betterment of that matchup, obviously with the exception of a few offensive players. I think if you made him kind of do like one of those cornerback blitzes off the slot position, I think he would thrive at that. I think he's a great leader. I think he makes people around him better. I think the Ravens' identity shines through him, and he's an all-around talent. Kyle Hamilton, what a steal by the Ravens. What a year by the Ravens defense. Mostly thanks to Kyle Hamilton.
Great. I could not agree more in the sense that he is the next star safety. He's the next name that we're going to see plastered everywhere. Pro Bowl year after year after year. All-Pro year after year after year.
After year.
But, Steve, the safety that had the best 2023 regular season. Now, I'm a big proponent of your stats don't tell the whole story, your eyes do, but we can't ignore the stats. You went through them. I'm going to go through them again for Antoine Winfield in Tampa Bay here.
Okay.
122 total tackles, 6 sacks, 6 forced fumbles, 4 of them recovered. We're going to go 3 interceptions, 12 pass deflections. This is a safety doing this, Steve.
Yeah.
This is insane. These are linebacker tackle numbers with corner pass deflection numbers and interception numbers with an edge rusher sack number. It's insane.
Yeah.
This guy had an all-around unbelievable season. He had the best season of 2023. Kyle Hamilton's an absolute dog, no doubt about it. But Antoine Winfield this year took the safety position to a new level to the point where I give a shit about the stats.
In a season where the Bucs were expected to be a bottom 5 team in the entire NFL.
Yep, 100%. This is coming from somebody. I'm going to eat my words here. Like I said, I thought the Bucs were going to be the worst team in the NFL. I thought they were going to be worse than the Cardinals. I sure as shit didn't think the Panthers would be this bad. But
yeah.
Beside the point, and they come out and they play solid offense. Their weapons still work. Baker has a little bit of a resurgence. And then their defense plays unbelievable still. It's incredible to see.
Absolutely. Since the Sandbox fans. This wraps up the safety positional rankings. So now, to progress, the cornerbacks are coming soon. We're cooking. We're working.
Mm-hmm.
We got a lot coming for you guys. But in the meantime, we're breaking down the playoffs, giving you our bets, X Factors, predictions for all the games throughout. We got the wild card out now. Division will be out next week. We got some special guests. Your guy, Kyle Arrington's going to be on. He's going to be talking about the Gerard Mayo head coaching scenario. He's going to be at the Super Bowl, all coming to you guys a week before the big dance. A lot of things coming, a lot of things cooking, a lot of special guests coming on since the Sandbox that are in the works. You might not even know yet.
Damn!
You guys know the deal. Peace, love, 5 stars, nothing less.